Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, August the 23rd regular session of the Xenia City Council. We're ready to begin at this time, and we will open with an invocation by Pastor Will Urschel from Emmanuel Baptist Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mayor Sarah Mays. If you would rise with me, please, for the invocation and pledge.
Great, let's go ahead and pray. Father, first we just thank you that you are a good God and you're gracious to us. You've known us from eternity past, and you've had great plans for our lives. So we thank you for that, and your plans are for the good for us, Father, not with evil intent. Father, I thank you for our city, and I thank you for our the folks here tonight in our council and the city managers and the city officers. And I pray for them as they work really hard, Father, for all of us without much monetary reward for that. And they have to listen to a lot of complaining and other issues. And God, I just pray that you would give them patience and wisdom, help them to lean hard on you and to listen well to each other, to work well with each other. And I just pray for the things that are on the agenda tonight. God, give them your grace as they're walking through those things and making decisions for us here in our city. Father, I pray for our law enforcement folks and our firefighters and our EMTs and the folks that are out protecting us tonight. As we're sitting in here, God, they're out on the streets and going to be dealing with a lot of really hard situations. And God, once again, give them your grace and strength and peace as they deal with those things. And Father, we thank you for our city. And I just pray that as the days and months and years go forward, help us, we're the city of hospitality, God, help us to be gracious with each other and to be humble before you as well. Just praise things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Urschel and Mayor Mays. May I have roll call, please?
Vice President Wallace.
Present.
Councilman Scrivens.
Present.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Here.
Councilman Smith.
Here.
Councilman Dean.
Here.
Mayor Mays.
Here.
President Engel.
Here. At this time, I would seek a motion for approval of the August 9th, 2018 regular session minutes, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by the mayor, seconded by the vice president. Any discussion or question on our motion, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Abstain.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Engel.
I abstain.
Motion carried.
Thank you. This time, we have an opportunity for a special presentation by Superintendent David Deskins from the Greene County Career Center. Please step to the mic, sir.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Mr. President, Madam Mayor, members of council, city representatives, and our visitors in the audience. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. It's a privilege for me to represent the Career Center and provide some information regarding an initiative that's coming your way very soon, as the Greene County Career Center is planning to be on the ballot in November. And tonight I would like to talk a little bit about an initiative that we've called the Take Flight Initiative. That's a component of the current Greene County Career Center. I'm going to cover a lot of information with you over a long period of time, and in respect to your time, I'm going to do that as quickly as I possibly can. So this really initiative began, I arrived in Greene County in 2014-15 school year. Upon arriving, there were some concerns occurring in the county, certainly around the Career Center. One of those was a decline in enrollment. Upon arriving, we had about 514 students registered on our campus. We had about 1,200 students that we were serving in all of the school districts in Greene County. So all 7 school districts, we operate what are called satellite programs, which serve students around career technical education in each of Greene County's 7 schools. And so the declining enrollment was, of course, a concern. But at the same time, upon arriving, the school was in the throes of trying to handle a problem or a crisis with a heating and cooling system. That system had been installed back in 2010, as I was told, and upon my arrival in 2014-2015, the school district had been in about a 2.5-year lawsuit with a number of defendants regarding a failed installation of that system. And so those were the two things that I arrived to find in 2014-15. And very quickly, we needed to do a few things. Number one, we needed to remedy the heating and cooling challenge. And then number two, we needed to understand why students were leaving the Career Center and what we needed to do to keep it a viable option for workforce development in Greene County. And that led us to comply and to make application for a grant with the Developmental Services Agency in Columbus, where we participated in a program called the LGIF, Local Government Innovation Fund grant application. And we submitted a grant to try to obtain some info about the types of workforce needed in our region. We all can talk about what we think the jobs are. We certainly hear it from our business and industry partners. But one thing we don't get is the definitive data to tell us what does that really look like. So we used these grant dollars. It was a $50,000 award to the Career Center to conduct a market analysis of the needed jobs in our region. And we specifically were curious about jobs related to aerospace careers because of our proximity to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and some of the components that the base carries. Number one being the largest single-site employer in the state of Ohio with over 14,000 employees. And number two being, if not the largest, one of the largest recipients of federal research and development dollars. And so that became very pivotal for us to understand the workforce needs around that industry. So we utilized this grant at the same time that we were doing that market analysis. We also engaged in a survey of the students and families who had left the Career Center over that 2-year previous period of time. We wanted to hear from them on why they were choosing a different pathway or why they were choosing to no longer participate. And so those were really the two things that led us to pursue this concept of the Take Flight initiative. The market analysis was very telling for us. It came back and revealed to us that around aerospace careers in our region, there are predominantly 3 market needs that have massive job market numbers. In other words, job openings in 3 predominant areas around aerospace careers. The first of those being engineering. That would make sense in light of the fact that we have a large number of businesses who provide through those research and development funds at Wright-Pat a lot of research and opportunity at the base. The second area was in the area of manufacturing. That one comes as a surprise to none of us. We're hearing that loud and clear, the need for more workers in that industry. And the third is information technology. So this advancement in cybersecurity, work with drones and unmanned aircraft, et cetera. Those 3 industries account for $20 billion of Ohio's industry. And here in the Dayton region, we have multiple hundreds of job openings in those areas. So that led us as a Career Center to feel like we needed to communicate with all the schools in the county, with the local colleges and universities, and with our business and industry partners to see how we could meet the needs of providing that type of a market fill. We, at the time of obtaining the data on this, which occurred in December of 2015, on the market needs, we were also working on getting the replacement because we had settled a lawsuit over the heating and cooling system. So we had engineers and architects coming in to make the replacement at the Career Center. Upon coming in the middle of 2016, they informed us that they were not comfortable replacing the system because there were massive roofing issues that were going to need to be addressed. To my delight, the roof was put on the same year as the HVAC system. And so we were, of course, left trying to figure out for our community and our students and residents, how are we going to address or remedy this? So now we're looking at an HVAC system that we knew was going to be a few $1 million to replace. We're now looking at a roofing system that might require additional millions of dollars to replace. And so our Board of Education decided to reach to the Ohio School Facilities Commission and conduct an assessment of our facility. So in the summer of 2016, architects and engineers descended upon our place, 3 or 4 months worth of investigating, going through every crack and crevice, going under our building, which has crawl space capability, but that's all. It's a 51-year-old facility. And they conducted and completed a written report that they provided us that's hundreds of pages long, but ultimately the outcome of their study was that for us to bring the current Career Center with no new space for the new programs that the market tells us we need, we were going to need to invest $24.2 million to repair our existing facility. That really created a challenge for the board because, of course, do you invest $24 million in a 51-year-old facility, or is it time to start looking into the future for Greene County residents, students, and certainly for business and industry partners that are crying for help in the workforce around the skilled trades. So our board said, well, we would love to have a facility that would allow us to continue our current programming, but also expand into the new programs around aerospace that we know exist in our market, but we really are not comfortable at this point going to our voters. Can we look for other options before we get to that point? So in 2017, or late 16, 17, we decided we were going to reach out to the state. A lot of public schools have access through the School Facilities Commission to get assistive dollars to build new schools, and we wanted to know where career centers fit in that mold. We were intrigued to find that career centers are not eligible for new school construction dollars through the Ohio School Facilities Commission. So in the previous biennial budget, $650 million were awarded to the School Facilities Commission for the 2 years, so about $325 million per year. And of that money, 98% could be used for new school construction of K-12 schools in the local communities. And 2% of that money could be used to assist career centers, but not for new construction, only to make repairs in an old facility. And I was bothered by that. We as a board and us as a district felt as though public school students at career centers should have some ability to access resources equally, because we are indeed, we believe, a very viable component of our community. So we decided to kind of take on a small task. We wanted to try to change Ohio's law. And so we began working with our local legislators. In 2016 and 17, we were successful through Senator Hackett in getting language in the budget bill that was released in February of 2017. And in that budget bill, the Senate was able to get language included that would have allowed the School Facilities Commission to fund new construction for one career center project a year. We put a cap on how much so that the state would feel comfortable that they weren't spending more on a career center than a K-12. We allowed the governor's Jobs Ohio staff and Ohio Means Jobs staff to help make the selection of what area of Ohio needed that development. We tried to make it a very neutral, beneficial for the entire state piece of law. We were really excited when it cleared the Senate and went to conference committee in roughly March or April of 2017. And on June the 29th, the governor was scheduled by the 30th to sign the biennial budget. There were 2,400 items in that budget bill, and he line item vetoed 47. And one of the items he chose to remove was our proposed language. So we were not able to and unsuccessful in trying to obtain the funds for this through the state, but we gave it a good 1.5-year battle, really trying to avoid having to beleaguer our taxpayers for the support. Upon not being successful with that, we made a choice to try to reach the business and industry. There are folks who are telling us they need the trained workers, so we began communicating with those agencies, trying to figure out, is there funding? Are you able to help or assist us in this way? The information we received at that point was we're able to and willing to help with equipment in a new facility, but we're not going to be in a position to be able to help with bricks and mortar or new construction. So at that point, I'm back to the board. We have a problem. We still have these 24 million issues at the school district to address, but we're now kind of running out of options. So at that point, the board, of course, still concerned about the voters, took my recommendation to obtain a survey and conduct a survey of registered voters in Greene County. Let's go ask us. Let's ask our residents how we feel about this. And so really as the survey unfolded in late 2017, it actually was conducted in December, we were interested in trying to obtain 3 different pieces of the puzzle. The first thing we wanted to know was what is the overall comfort level and confidence level people have in our career center. So of the 500 registered voters who were surveyed by the Fallon Research Group, a private firm out of Columbus, the question was, what's your confidence level? The second question we were interested in hearing from our voters on was talk a little bit to us about your belief in this concept of take flight. If we need to expand careers around aerospace to support the jobs in our region, how comfortable are you that we should be doing that? And the third, of course, question for a school district that's the most pivotal, and for all of you as public officials, are you willing to help pay for that? And so those were the three questions we really wanted to get to the heart of. The survey completed in 2017 December. Question number one that we were really after resulted in a 77% approval rating by our registered voters of the work being done by the Career Center, confidence in our ability to provide trained workforce. We felt pretty comfortable with that number since in a lot of districts, Career Centers aren't as well known as the K-12 schools. The second component we were interested in around Take Flight, we received information back on that was really very telling from our voters. We had an over 90% approval rating from our registered voters that aerospace training and jobs around aerospace careers make sense to us in Greene County. So if we were to expand our current programming to include aerospace programming, there was clear support from our registered voters that that made sense and we should be preparing workers. Third and most important question, will you help pay for it? That was a little more intriguing. So early in the survey, we wanted to know people's overall comfort level. So I believe the second question on the survey asked, what is your level of comfort with your current property taxes? Just kind of cut to the chase. Are they too high? Are they about right? Or are they too low? Superintendent's nightmare, 50% early in the survey said they're too high, and 50% said they're about right or too low. So then after we presented information about the take flight needs in our region and the workforce development needs around aerospace, we came back in the survey and we asked the question again, a little more pointed. If it becomes necessary for the Career Center to construct a new facility or equip it with new technologies to prepare workers for these three job areas around aerospace and engineering, manufacturing, and IT, how confident are you that the public should help pay for that by way of an increased tax levy? Let's cut to the chase with the question. The response, though, after we had presented data about Take Flight, 59% of our registered voters said, yes, we believe we would do that or should do that, and 41% said no. So at that point, the board asked me to begin looking at the best possible way for us to go to our voters with the lowest amount of millage and the shortest amount of time, because they are very conscientious of the impact of that in each of our school communities. So we are planning to be on the ballot in November. The Greene County Career Center initiative will be a 20-year bond issue. It will equate to a 1.03 mil levy, which amounts to $36, and if we're going to be exact, $36.05 per $100,000 evaluation. And the purpose for us will be, of course, to continue our current programming, but to expand at that new center into the aerospace careers that the market has told us are job needed. Why are we doing this? I think I've highlighted that for all of you. We have had some really intriguing enrollment increases. One of the enrollment increases that I'll share with you is this year. Remember when I arrived, we had about 514 students on campus. This year we had over 700 registered on campus. And this year, you may recall, we were back in the 1200s in 2014-15. We are serving about 2,800 students in the satellite schools, in your home schools, with Career Center training. So those enrollment increases are due to a couple of different things, one of which is the Beaver Creek City Schools, which made an invitation for the Career Center to come in and begin teaching aerospace-related Project Lead the Way careers. And they actually are requiring middle grade students to take two courses that are Career Center programs. One is a one is a Project Lead the Way course on automation and robotics, and the other is a Project Lead the Way program on flight and space. Those two programs are being taken by every middle school student, 8th grade student last year, this year 7th grade students in Beaver Creek. And it's become a very powerful effort. The other thing that has happened that has really promoted this initiative countywide, because all school districts have had this same presentation you're getting and are in support of this, as are local colleges and universities that are partnering with us. But the other advantage is Beaver Creek Schools agreed to share a grant with the entire county that resulted in training for 120 teachers from every school in Greene County around aerospace concepts and careers. 120 teachers between last summer and this fall participated in a 3-day teacher air camp put on here locally by Wright State, and the University of Dayton and a number of others. Those 120 teachers will reassemble in October, and they're going to develop curriculum around aerospace careers that we're going to share with every school district in Greene County that will allow students beginning in kindergarten to get exposure to different careers in aerospace to help promote the job market needs we know exist in our region. Really powerful are those things because this creates a unique thing for Xenia, for all 7 of our school districts, and certainly for Greene County because we've identified an industry with major market needs, and we're beginning exposure to students for those careers starting when they're 5 and 6 and 7 years old. And that just simply isn't being done in a whole lot of places around our country. So we're very excited by it. We know that being able to provide the workforce and the training will help our students and our young people stay and work in our region, and we feel that's important. They help build our communities. They know our values. To be able to pour them back into our communities, we feel is very vital. We know the community has shown support for the initiative. We know we have infrastructure restraints and some major cost issues with our existing structure, and we have identified what we believe is a better location for the upcoming Career Center. So what I'll highlight for you here is the site that the Board of Education is currently under contract to purchase. And what you're looking at on your maps is a picture of the interchange of State Route 35 and US 68. And so I guess trying to identify an area for you. Are you seeing that red dot on your screens or no? No. Okay. So the property that we're looking at is the property that sits between Union Road and State Route 68. It's that 37.46 acres right at the dead end of Innovation Way on Union Road. That property gives visibility to State Route 35 as well as US 68. It is actually more convenient of a location for 5 of our 7 school districts in the county, meaning a shorter time on the bus and more time in labs and more time training. We've identified that we also, by purchasing that property and through an incredible partnership that's begun and discussions that have begun with your city leaders, this property is going to become really valuable to not just Xenia, but all of Greene County, because our ownership of that property should allow us to have some access for a roadway to connect innovation over to State Route 68, which should open the floodgate for business and industry who have been waiting on access to that property from the highway to be able to do so. So in addition to us creating a really powerful way to train and build Ohio's workforce here in Greene County, we're also expanding the economic values of Xenia and of the county. So we are really thrilled. I am going to come to a close here. What we are asking and have been asking from our boards of education and other business and industry leaders is a resolution of endorsement. We would ask your board to consider such. We would ask you to support this initiative. We believe it's vital for us to meet the workforce needs in this region. I've provided fact sheets to each of you, as well as, and that's on the ivory page, as well as on the white sheet, which is a frequently asked question page for the questions we know are the most common that we've heard. We have available yard signs to support the Career Center. Feel free to let me know. We'll get some to you. We'll welcome any volunteerism. And of course, my public information officer tells me to always mention that we're open to contributions if anyone would like to make it. With that, I appreciate so much your time, and I stand ready to respond to any of your questions.
Thank you very much, sir. Councilman.
Not a question, but a couple comments.
Yes, sir.
First of all, appreciate you coming here.
Thank you.
Met with you earlier this week. And in Wednesday's Dayton Daily News, it says demand for workers high in Dayton area. And I've said many times, the way you grow our job base is jobs. And that's what this city needs. And the location, that's exciting to me, of course. But we need, there's so many of our companies, besides aerospace and IT, manufacturing, people are begging for specialized welders, CNC operators, electricians, plumbers. I mean, not all kids are ready for college. And you can earn a good living by going to a vocational school.
There is no doubt.
Yeah.
With way less college debt.
Yeah, and I support this 100%. And it's kind of we've talked about cases before, and I don't want to get on my soapbox, but it's kind of discouraging that he vetoed an item that would only, you could only pick one facility per year. And he vetoed that. So I'm very, I'm very upset about that. But, and as I was talking to you earlier this week, a surprise to me was recent ballots. Xenia has a majority of students at vocational school, is that correct?
So currently Xenia sends us the largest population percentage-wise of their junior and senior classes. That's
And
correct.
previous votes, it's been voted down in Xenia.
In some township districts, in some of our precincts, that's correct.
So I would just encourage our citizens to get behind this project, and it's going to be great for the city of Xenia.
I agree.
And we've got some things on the front burner and the back burner, and the way you grow your tax base, once again, is jobs, jobs, jobs. So I appreciate your time, and I support you 100%.
Thank you, Councilman.
Any other comments from my colleagues, please?
Thank you. I'd like to thank you for the presentation. It was extremely informative, and I was already supportive before you presented, and now I have absolutely no choice but to aggressively and assertively support the issue.
Thank you, Dr. Wallace.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I'd like to give you my unqualified support. I'm a graduate of the Career Center in the food service area, and you guys do a real good job, and I'm really proud of what you've been able to do over the years. And I agree with Councilman Lauterbach. Not every student that goes to school is a college-bound student, and they have to find their place in society, and they have to have a reasonable source of income. And through what you do, I think that's just excellent. And like I said, I'll be behind you 100%. Thank you, sir, for your time and your presentation.
Thank you, Councilman.
Ma'am.
For folks watching either here or at home, or for any of us, how do we get a sign if we were interested?
So anyone can reach out to us at the Career Center, and
Career
we
Center.
can make those available. There are plenty around. Right now, we're actually offering support signs just to support
Support the
building our
workforce.
local workforce. They're not really a component of the levy per se. We just want the community to understand that's our mission.
Okay, so just
So we have
contact the
those
Career
signs,
Center.
and they're available. Just reach out to anyone at the Career Center.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments?
sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
One
I'd like
final.
to defer to, I'm sorry, to the law director. Can we do a resolution tonight? Are we ready?
Right, that's what I was going to ask.
Can we vote on that?
Well, if we don't have a resolution prepared, the charter says any actual resolutions or ordinances are to be presented to you in writing. But we could certainly have one ready to bring back at the next
First
meeting.
meeting in September?
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes.
The actual passage would have to defer until such time as we have it in front of us, but can we make a commitment tonight so that Mr. Deskins can go back to his board and say that?
Yeah.
Sense of the council.
Sense of the council.
I think we're in consensus. You could make a motion, if it was second brought to the floor, to direct staff to prepare a resolution of support for the item.
I would like to make that said motion.
And I'd like to second it, Mr. Lauterbach.
And
Thank
for-
you. Moved and seconded by Councilman Lauterbach and the Vice President respectively. Any discussion or question on the motion? please?
Just one thing, can people fish in that pond behind the Career Center, or what? Just a joke.
Do I need to answer that question, Councilman?
If so, it'll be catch and release, right?
Thank you.
We get that question a lot.
I know that's right.
Any other questions, Councilman? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Eagle?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Excellent presentation.
Yes.
We will look forward to next meeting and seeing that resolution for our consideration. This time we'll move to old business.
Audience comments?
Oh, terribly sorry.
Audience
Longer
comments.
presentation. Audience comments. Anyone wishing to address the Xenia City Council, please feel free to do so. Step to the podium, provide us your name and address. Limit your comments 4 to 5 minutes, please.
Do you mind if I shut this thing? Or whoever? All right. My name is Susan Lopez, and I've been here before. I live at 1036 Highview Drive, Beaver Creek. I'm running for Greene County Commission. And I want to say, I don't know if Dave has left, but the Greene County Career Center, it really serves well in training kids for livable wage that they wouldn't get right out of high school. So I think that's very important. I love that he came here. He's very transparent, so you know where your dollars are going to go when you vote for it. I think that's very important. I happen to be on advisory group for one of the teachers that are the satellite teachers. So it is very important, even for the satellite teachers, because they do use the services at the center also. I wanted to tell you about an initiative that is happening, and it is on human trafficking. So anybody is welcome to attend this. It is happening at Emmanuel Baptist Church in Bellbrook. It's a non-denominational, nonpartisan effort. Dwayne and also myself are working on that. He has a team set up, and we are working on educating this area on human trafficking. We can no longer deny that that is not an issue in our area. I don't know if you saw in the paper today, but there was an article in the paper. There is people and families whose children have been human trafficked in our area. And there are adults that are being human trafficked in our area. And human trafficking is not just the exploitation of somebody's body, it is also of labor force. So, and that is happening around our area also. So that is open to anybody. It does have a faith initiative, but it is open no matter what your faith or if you do not have faith. So it is at Emmanuel Baptist Church in Bellbrook at 2928 Wilmington Dayton Road in Bellbrook from 6 to 8:30. Thank you very much.
Did you say the date, ma'am? Ma'am,
Ms. Lopez.
What's that?
did you say the date, please?
The date
Yes.
is the 27th.
27th. Okay,
Great.
thank you. Could we possibly get that on our website as a running advertisement for that initiative, please? Thank you.
John Kelp, 936 Orville Way. To answer the mayor's question about the signs, I know the Republican Party is working on getting some signs for distribution that you'll be able to hopefully get at 45 East Main Street, right down the road. So
Thank you.
they should be there. Just a couple questions on the agenda and some things I asked last meeting that really didn't get answered. I'm hoping tonight, with the city manager being back in attendance, that we might be able to get some answers for the public to a couple of these questions. The first item, you have an ordinance on the ballot or on the agenda tonight for a charter review committee. I'm not opposed to a charter review committee. I personally don't believe anyone from council should sit on that committee. I think charter amendments and changes should be citizen-driven, not staff-driven, not council-driven. My second question is, we haven't touched the charter since 1998. So the charter, changes to the charter haven't snuck up on us. So why is this item an emergency? Why are we pushing it through quickly to get something on to the Board of Elections before September 7th? I mean, I would have thought if this was such a pressing need, that this item would have come to council long before now to where it wasn't an emergency. So I just kind of question, why all of a sudden it's a rush to get it done this year. The other questions surround the housing development on Dayton Avenue. At the last meeting, I asked several questions. Councilman Smith tried to answer a couple of the questions. I spoke to the assistant city manager after the meeting. My question to the city manager that hopefully he can answer tonight, did staff present the project on Dayton Avenue to the Planning and Zoning Commission that the developers were developers who specialized in tax credit properties? Was it presented that it would be 100% rental income properties now to the Planning and Zoning Commission? And was it presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission that it would be 60% of median income? Because if it wasn't presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission that way, then their recommendation to council was a recommendation without all the facts. My second question to the city manager would be, in correspondence to the council, in no way did he ever mention 100% rental properties. In no way did he ever mention 60% of median income. That came out after I asked the questions in that council meeting at the end of July. So my question is, did the city manager and staff know that this was a tax credit project? Did they know it was 60% of income? My other question is, the city manager stated these units were market rate. I understand market rate of the county median income. I understand that. So are you telling me that is that how we sell our city now? Well, we'll go with a low-income project and call it market rate because the median income of the county almost makes that 60% the median income of Xenia. So is that what we're calling market rate now in the city of Xenia? Because if it is, it's disingenuous. Thank you very much.
Would anyone else care to come and address the Xenia City Council this evening, please? Thank you. We'll move to old business, Resolution 2018-X, providing for assessments to be levied and authorizing the finance director to certify those assessments to the county auditor, originally introduced by Councilman Smith.
So introduced, Mr. President. Move for passage.
Thank you. Move for passage. Second, please.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Latterback. Discussion or question on the motion, please. Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
Aye.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Engel?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. There are no public hearings scheduled for this evening, so we will move to new business. First one is ordinance 2018-25, an emergency, providing for the election on the adoption of section 8.05 of the charter of the city of Xenia, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. Madam Law Director.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of council. This ordinance tonight is to put on the ballot of the November 6th election, to put before the voters the option of adding a section to the city charter to create a charter review commission. Section 8 of the charter currently has Planning and Zoning Commission, Board of Zoning Appeals, and Civil Service Commission. Those three existing entities are there. Charter review would be added to that. The charter has not been reviewed in 20 years. It's long overdue. What this committee would do, it would be appointed by the city council as a whole every 5 years. No more than 2 members, if you read how it's actually written, no more than 2 members may be city staff or city council members. To say that no council members should be on the commission when council members currently serve on planning commission and BZA and civil service, I don't know why we would preclude that. We do, however, agree that that should not be the majority. Our citizens should have the majority vote on that commission. So that's how this is currently written. If this is approved by the voters in November, it would not become effective until January 1st of 2019. You're looking at probably a year's review before even we would have anything to bring to council before the next election. The reason this is being presented as an emergency tonight is to get it on the November 6th ballot. If we don't pass it as an emergency, we will not be able to get it on the ballot for this year. If we couldn't get on the ballot till next year, then you're looking at charter review not starting until 2020. So the goal was to get this in front of the voters. That way council next year can appoint a 5-person charter review commission. As it hasn't, it's been 20 years since we've last reviewed it. It may take the commission up to a year to get through it. That would give them the time to do a very thorough review and bring any recommendations back to you on changes that they think should be made to the charter. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. May I have a motion, please, as an emergency?
I so move, Mr. President.
Thank you. Moved by the Vice President as an emergency. Second.
Second.
Seconded by the mayor. Discussion or question on the motion, please. Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Madam Law Director, the current city charter as it stands, being in full force and effect, was developed by a citizens council. I was a part of that. The late Herman Menapace was the chair. We had the late Bill Eichmann, the late Dr. Falls, Kay Schlesinger, and a number of other prominent citizens. And we invited everyone to submit ideas to this ad hoc citizen charter review committee. We worked every Tuesday from 11:30 until 1 o'clock for 6 years to develop the current Xenia City Charter, which after we hammered out our language, then we had 3 people from the then City Commission, Dr. Eric Winston, Bob Stillwell, and I forget the other person, and the law director then, Kimberly Mayhew, served as our secretary, and she got the verbiage legally correct. But we had reviewed 20 or 30 charters of cities of the same size around America, and we gleaned from that things that we thought would be the best thing for Xenia. And for 20 years, it served us well. I'm definitely for adding this section that you propose, that we have in the charter stipulations for a charter review committee. I would like to expand that number from the numbers that you have to double that. So we'll have good input from a variety of perspectives of our citizens. And with that, Mr. President, I thank you. Now you'll back balance my time.
So, sir, are you making a motion, an amendment to the motion?
I would like to perfect the motion to double the number of charter
Seats.
review committee seats. That's correct.
To 10?
Yes, sir. And with the one odd seat being the law director actually being the chairperson or something like that.
Not chairperson.
You need an odd number, so we need to double that, and then we have to add someone to make it an odd number.
So your proposal would be?
I'd like to perfect Dr. Wallace's motion.
Certainly. So,
I would not recommend adding the law director as a sitting member. My role would be to serve as legal
staff.
advisor to
Right.
that commission. I should not be voting on that.
Yeah, but you should be a staff person to that committee. That's what
Correct.
I,
And
that's what I
advisory
was
capacity.
suggesting,
Ex
yes.
officio.
okay. So under the item we have in front of us.
Under
section
805A.
805A should read,
10 members. So we could get a broad swath of our community to be on that August committee.
okay,
If it needs to be an odd number, then that would be 9 or 11.
Right, well, let's move it to 11 then, so that would make it the odd number. And those being appointed by the president and the council, being ratified by the council, appointed by the president and ratified by the council.
okay. So we have an amendment to the original motion. Is there a second to the amendment?
I'm not objectionable to having a greater number, so that we can get massive input.
Okay,
So I'll
so
second it.
we have a second to the amended motion. Discussion on the amended motion, please. Councilman.
I can support the amended, but I cannot support the original motion because of it being an emergency. I do not, we bring too many emergencies to this council table.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. President, I'd love input. My big concern is just even getting 9 people to serve on this. We have commissions that have been vacant for a long time. I'd love to have 9 people on there, but I don't know if that's achievable with everybody as busy as they are.
That was gonna be my comment, is that most of us right now have empty seats on our commission that we can't seem to get filled. My concern would be, which I think the number that you had said, 11, would be very challenging to find, one, to fill that, and two, if you're talking, like you said, weekly.
To simply hold a meeting, you would require 6 sitting members, which would be larger than the majority of our current standing committees' populations, where I think it's been described, we've had to postpone several meetings. I am all for a larger cross-section of the community, if that's the overall
I agree.
council's desire. I would be concerned, though, with the committee being able to function in a reasonable time and with reasonable consistency.
Could we change the language of a minimum of 5 up to 11, so that it gives us the
Well,
option?
just to give you a little background, the reason it was set at 5, the current 3 charter-created boards and commissions are 5 qualified members.
Right.
So this kind of kept it in line with that. 5 is a workable number. These commission meetings, like any other commission meetings, are open to the public. The public can come participate, give input, they just wouldn't have voting rights. It's completely up to council. 11 members as a voting body might be somewhat unworkable.
Could we word it of the
An
commission
odd-
is a minimum of 5 members?
An odd number of at least 5, no more than 11?
Yes.
There we go.
And
I would be in
that
support
gives
of
you the
that.
open-ended, should there suddenly be a lot of people who are interested in being a voting member, but then we can still form that
So there's
at the 5.
So you'd have to amend the amendment, right?
Yes.
Vote on the amended amendment. vote on the
Yes.
amendment,
With that, I'd like to perfect my motion again.
Well, actually, I think you'll need to withdraw your
I
first
withdraw
motion.
that motion and then offer the motion that from 5 to
An odd
11
number of
members.
An
members
That's
odd
right.
number
between
of
5
5
and
and
11
11.
members.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
And I'll second that as well.
thank you.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a comment, though. I had the privilege of serving on the merger commission of the city of Lexington and Fayette County, Kentucky. And we had a larger number. I don't remember the exact number now. It's been a long time ago, back in the 70s. But I do remember that we had many nights that we had to resolve ourselves as a committee of the whole, because we did not have a quorum present to actually officially
Hold an official
act.
meeting.
Exactly. And so on that basis, I think that it's wise for us to go with the minimum of 5 and up to maximum of 11. And then we'll see how much interest there is in serving. And if it turns out to be 11, it turns out to be 11. But we know we can get something started and get it started soon. The 3 years that I've been here, we've talked about changes that need to be made, potential changes that need to be made, and they can't be made and certainly can't be implemented unless we get on the ballot. And so,
Thank you. So we now have a retracted motion and an amended motion that reads, shall consist of between 5 and 11 members, with the remainder of it being, will consist of an odd number of members between 5 and 11 members. And we have a second from the Vice President. Discussion on this motion, please.
Could you support that? Mr. President, I move that we suspend the discussion and call for the yeas and nays.
Agreed? Roll call, please.
Vice President Wallace,
aye.
Councilman Scrivens,
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Very good.
So now if I recall Robert's Rules of Order correctly, we have amended this motion. Now we must seek an emergency motion to pass the amended motion.
I still so move.
Thank you. Moved by the Vice President. Second, please.
I would second that.
Seconded by Councilman Scrivens. Discussion on this motion. Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach.
Aye.
Councilman Smith.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next item of new business is ordinance 2018-26, also an emergency. Amending ordinance 2018-19 to provide appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures for the city of Xenia, Ohio for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2018, and declaring an emergency. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. President. It made a little more sense for me to introduce this item this evening. So earlier this year, at council's request, staff increased the number of weekly hours spent sweeping our streets to improve conditions in the community. Residents had rightfully raised this concern with regard to increasing the amount of removing the increased amount of roadway debris and trash in various parts of the city. So our efforts have actually been quite fruitful to the point that we have increased the increased service required much more frequent dumpster collection from Rumpke. In 2017, the city paid $22,837 for street sweeping dumpster services for those debris materials. 2018, a similar amount was budgeted, but due to the increased level of service, additional resources will be necessary to sustain that service through the end of the year. To date, the city has incurred $30,501.05 in charges for that dumpster removal service as a result of the increased collection. This amount is actually greater than the current purchase order amount, which will require a separate then and now action later this evening being requested by staff. Separate from that and moving forward, however, for the remainder of the year, it's necessary to provide for additional budget resources to continue these street sweeping efforts at our current rate. Staff is therefore recommending this evening that council authorizes an emergency and appropriation of $35,000 into account number 613-1333, 532-9E to cover this need through the end of fiscal year 2018. And then, of course, staff will recommend adjustments to, as needed to 2019 for our operating budget if council so wishes to continue with this level of the service, which I think fairly evaluated has improved conditions in many areas of our city. So.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion, please, as an emergency for this item?
So moved as an emergency?
Moved by the mayor as an emergency. Second, please.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Smith. Discussion or question on this item, please.
Why is this an emergency?
It probably, well, so as we'll detail in a later agenda item on the then and now, we had money budgeted in this year's budget similar to the prior year with a little bit of an increase accounting for the 3% increase in the Rumpke charges. When we increased the service based on the conversation here a couple months ago, we increased the number of hours and we really had no idea. We didn't just increase the number of hours, we also switched the service, the added hours over a different employee who I think was working the machinery a little more aggressively. So we've just collected a lot more trash and debris than we thought. So with that pace of collections, we've required more frequent, more extensive dumpster service collection services. So in order to continue through the rest of the year, and frankly to continue the service even in the next coming couple of months, we really need this as an emergency to provide for those additional resources. Otherwise, because we are out of money in that line item, I would have to discontinue that service if we went through a regular agenda item approach with the first reading, second reading, and a 30-day wait period.
Thank you.
Other questions, please?
Mr. President.
I'd just like to comment, to thank Public Service. They got my street last week and it looks awesome. I really appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Other comments, please?
Want to also thank the Public Service Department for being on the job. Sanitation is my crosshair.
And I think this is a particular item that you had brought to the table, and I think after we talked about it, we agreed that we could step up the service.
And I
after
thank Mr.
evaluating the
Berger and
neighborhood.
his crew, and so far, so good.
And I would add just similar views as my colleagues, thanking the both service department as well as the city manager for the foresight to arrange this. For those who are interested, and the discussion of emergencies have been brought up a couple of times this evening, the reason that these are emergencies are an artifact of Xenia's rather antiquated charter in terms of the way it addresses these particular items that are brought back to us. Our charter essentially requires us to do, as the city manager had described just a few moments ago, where it's my understanding the vast majority of cities do not bear that same kind of burden. So as an event requires us to appropriate monies and spend monies in this fashion, the city staff has no alternative but to come back to council for an emergency issue, as opposed to the remainder of our cities in the area being able to simply do it as a motion and approval. So wanted to make sure that the audience was aware of such a thing. It is not a misplanning on the city's staff's perspective, at least from this councilman's view.
I disagree with that. All three items that's on the emergency tonight could have been done by staff before this, so we wouldn't have to have it as an emergency. That's my personal opinion.
Thank you. I would just note that city staff addresses many issues in any given week. And as we all do, we press for things that are most important to be done at the time. And I have no issue with the city manager and staff bringing these items to our consideration. Any other discussion or question, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
No.
Councilman Smith?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Engel?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next item under new business is Resolution 2018-Y, an emergency authorizing a then and now payment of $10,154.67 to Rumpke of Ohio for refuse collection service and declaring an emergency. Mr. City Manager.
As we just discussed, our expanded street sweeping has been productive to a significant degree, which has increased the service requirement relative to the dumpster collection services with Rumpke for the street sweeping. It's worth noting that the trash and debris from street sweeping is not considered normal trash by the Ohio EPA, and therefore is instead considered hazardous waste and requires a higher level of handling and different requirements in terms of the disposal service. That in turn increases our expenses relative to those collection services. In 2017, again, we had a $22,837 for dumpster services, and a purchase order for 2018 was opened for a similar amount. To date, after increasing the sweeping as council desired, the city has incurred $30,501.05 in charges for those dumpster collection services. Frankly, we just didn't anticipate that we would have that additional amount of collection material that quickly. As a result of these conditions, the monthly bill from Rumpke for July of this year for providing those dumpster services was $10,154.67, which exceeds the amount remaining on the open purchase order by $3,501.05. There are currently resources in the budget to pay for this. It's just that because the original purchase order was not opened in that amount sufficient to cover it, we are required to acknowledge that through a then and now statement. So again, we're not asking for additional dollars that are already in the budget for the purpose of this particular bill. It's just to make sure that there's an acknowledgement with that then and now. Staff recommends that resolution authorizing that as an emergency this evening.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion, please, as an emergency?
So move.
Moved by Councilman Scrivens. Second, please. I'll second. Discussion or question on this motion, please.
Mr. Public Service Director,
Please.
could I get a clarification on why our street sweeping material is considered hazardous waste?
Well, no, because that'd be a statutory thing. Once again, is the EPA has declared it to be that.
Ohio EPA?
Correct. Yes. But I think the intent or the spirit of that is, it's not, as the city manager said, it's not the same waste as you put in your garbage can. standard
I think
for
in part it's
disposal.
because of the exposure to oils, gases, all the,
Sure.
all the petroleum-related products that are invariably,
Oil on
picked
the
up as
street.
part of, correct, yep. So to put it in a normal landfill, it just doesn't have the same chemical composition as normal
Thank you, sir.
reservoir trash.
Appreciate the clarification. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any additional comments or questions, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach?
No.
Councilman Smith? Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Engel?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Our next item under the new business is ordinance 2018-27, amending chapter 234 and sections 260.03, 274.05, and 274.07 of the codified ordinances of the city of Xenia. Madam Law Director, please.
One of the things I would like to do, that council will be seeing me bring more to you, is update our codified ordinances. Many of our sections are very out to date. As we start working through Title I, I started with my own chapter, the Law Department chapter. What this chapter does, there were only two existing sections of this chapter, one from 1990 and one from 1973. So what the amendments do is we have added a 23401, which formally establishes the law department and the two divisions of that department, the city prosecution division and the victim advocate division. Those are both existing divisions, so that's not new. I then also added section 23402. That discusses the appointment of the law director, the powers and duties of the position, as well as the appointment of an acting law director. Most of the language in this section was taken right from the city's charter. There is a section 23403 that has been amended. What that basically does is talk about the city prosecution division, what the functions of that division are, how the city prosecutor is appointed, and what the city prosecutor's powers and duties shall be. That position's unclassified and has been unclassified under the existing city charter. Section 23404 has been added. That addresses the functions of the victim advocate division and the appointment and powers of the victim advocate supervisor. Again, these are functions and duties that this division already does. Lastly, there's a section 23405 that's been added basically just to acknowledge section 606 of the city's charter regarding the appointment of special counsel. Concurrent with the amendments to this chapter, after a year being here and evaluating the positions, I have recommended and have been working with the Human Resource Director on some changes to the position descriptions in the law department. So with those changes, which will be presented to the Civil Service Commission at their meeting in September, but to make those changes requires some changes from council. That would be the changes that come in 26003. We are eliminating the position of management analyst. That I don't believe that position has been filled in the law department for many years. Not a position I feel we need, so we are deleting that. The current paralegal will become legal assistant to the law director, as that position will take on more of the civil roles. The percentages paid from the different funds could now start going to helping fund that position. There's no change in salary in any of these positions. It's just a change in how the percentages. As we went through this with the Human Resource Director, we decided to go through and update the entire 26003. One of the things we did first of all was we reorganized it, where before the positions were kind of scattered throughout the table. We put all the positions that are under the city manager's control first, all the positions that are under the control of the finance director second, and then those within the law department come last. There were a couple of positions we removed. We had a redundant finance clerk position that was taken out. The other two changes were, we changed information technology to IT and changed engineer technician in the Public Works, the Public Service Department to engineering technician. The final changes are to 24705, 24705 and 274, I think I got those numbers backwards. It's 27405 and 27407. Again, this was the position of management analyst for the law department was deleted. That's not one that's going to be filled. The title paralegal assistant was changed to legal assistant to the law director. And the victim witness program director was changed, the title on that is being changed to the victim advocate supervisor. As we went through this, there were a few positions that were no longer relevant. We haven't filled them in many years. So after reviewing it with Ms. Potter, we went through and removed assistant to the city manager because you currently have assistant city manager position. This was separate. We're not getting rid of Jared. This is a separate position. There was also a director of community development. That position currently exists, but it's titled community development director. So you kind of had dual positions there. And then the position of utilities manager was also removed. We also removed police division, parking enforcement officer, and volunteer coordinator. That hasn't been filled in many years. Police cadet, we haven't filled that one. And then several of the other positions were just updated to reflect the titles that are actually used in the union contracts for those positions. And I would be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much. This item is only seeking an introduction. May I have an introduction from one of my colleagues, please?
So introduced, Mr. President.
Introduced by the Vice President. Any questions for the Law Director at this time? Councilman?
You say there's no change in salary in any of these positions?
No, sir.
I was a little bit confused when you said the Community Development Director was changed from Director of Community Development to Community Development Director. Is that correct?
No, sir. What I was saying is there are currently two positions. If you look at Exhibit C, the current section, you have two positions, one that says Community Development Coordinator, and then one that says Director of Community Development. The current position that is filled is the Community Development Coordinator. There is currently no one in the position of Director of Community Development, and that hasn't been the title for many years. So it was just, I think at some point the title of that position got changed.
I can maybe lend some additional clarification. We used to have a community development department separate from our development department, which was through the Xenia Economic Development Corporation. When the funding source for XEGC went away, some of the more tenured council members will recall, those services were absorbed into the city. We consolidated into one development department. So the community development director position was eliminated, and we had just a development director position was added. But again, to the law director's first point, the community development coordinator position is the position that's on the books today.
So it's merely a housekeeping measure.
Correct.
We're just removing that redundant position title.
Well, what would Steve Brodsky's title be?
Development director,
What would Mary Crockett's position be?
community development coordinator.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next item under new business is an administrative motion authorizing the city manager to execute change order number 1 in the amount of $103,338 with American Suncraft Company and Company for the West 2nd Street and Patton Street Water Towers Painting Project. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. In May of this year, City Council awarded the bid and authorized the contract to paint the 1 million gallon 2nd Street water tower, as well as the 3 million gallon Patton Street holding tank at a cost not to exceed $1,066,662. Staff has since engaged that contract, and presently the 2nd Street tower is near completion, and the contractor, American Suncraft, has begun preparations to commence the painting of the Patton Street holding tank. City Council recall at the time of the bid award in May, staff recommended an additional assessment on the interior of the Patton Street facility before a final decision was made on the approach for rehabilitation. Based on additional evaluation as detailed in your agenda packets, and because of the favorable bid we received for the overall project, it is our recommendation to now pursue the option to sandblast the entire facility to a point of bare metal before an overcoat is applied. Doing so will provide a higher degree of rehabilitation, and we should see a greater longevity with the rehabilitation investment that we're making. The proposal from American Suncraft Company to blast the entire exterior of the Patton Street holding tank has been provided, and the cost is $103,338. Because the project has remained within the budget, and to date, no change orders have been necessary, monies are available to pursue this option. Staff is recommending, therefore, this evening, an approval of an administrative motion to authorize change order number 1 in the amount of $103,338 with American Suncraft for the completion of this expanded project scope.
Have a motion for approval of the change order.
So moved, Mr. President.
Moved by Councilman Smith. Second, please. I'll second. Any discussion or question on this motion, please?
Mr. President.
Yes.
Mr. City Manager, do we have a holding tank on South Patton Street?
Well, not really. We call our Patton Street Tower, I mean, that's our industrial park tower. The names kind of get interchanged, but we have the large holding tank, and we have what we consider standpipes as part of that collection of facilities there at the intersection, or at the intersection of, what is it, Market?
East Market,
and Patton.
North Patton. I think that should be clearly designated as North Patton Street.
Yeah, is that incorrectly listed there?
That's not
Yeah.
designated anywhere as
Yeah.
North Patton Street. That's why I proposed the question about
Correct.
South Patton Street.
Correct, yep.
So if that could be made stipulated clearly, then I'd be for that.
Sure. I should add also, with regard to the exterior painting, we are exploring right now applying a rendering of the historic city seal to that large tank, and it would be oriented such that you'd be able to see it from both Market and Main Street. So that'll be part of that final finish coat. We thought, given the historic nature of the facilities over there, that made sense and be a nice homage to that. So that'll be on the exterior finish.
Just one final comment. Coming in on 35 to Xenia, it's really nice to see City of Hospitality. And, well, are we going to keep that designation?
Yeah, so we have hesitated putting any finish coat on that tower, and the reason why, we're looking at the possibility of a vinyl overlayment rather than painting. But we feel like that Second Street tower is maybe one of the best focal points we have from a branding and marketing standpoint. I mean, that's visible to the whole community and well beyond, and a lot of drivers down 35 every day see that. So we've completed that outer coat, and we're currently exploring to find the most cost-effective option, whether it would be to put some type of a vinyl wrap, or whether it would be to paint it. If we go the vinyl wrap route, we'd be able to do a lot more detailed, and we feel preliminarily it would be a lot more cost-effective. Probably not have quite the longevity, but if we're spending less and getting a better product, then we could more frequently update that rather than, once we paint it, and I think based on our best assessment, that tower is the original paint from when it was constructed.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're only doing these things once every 20 years, you want to make sure you get it right and have a good product. So yeah, the plan will be, once we have done a little bit more homework and understand what the most cost-effective option would be, to probably bring an item back to council for a recommendation, and probably will solicit council's input in that design process as well in terms of what the aesthetics of that would look like.
Okay, sir, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any
Thank
other
you, Mr.
discussion or
President.
question on this item, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace,
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens,
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach,
Aye.
Councilman Smith,
Aye.
Councilman Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Mays,
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Our next item under new business is an administrative motion authorizing a beer garden for the sale of alcohol as part of the 2018 Xenia Community Festival to be hosted at Shawnee Park. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. In July of this year, City Council approved ordinance 2018-22, which established new requirements under section 1062.21 of our ordinances regarding special events applications. The changes essentially require that any entity that desires to sell alcohol at a city event on city property would be required to request such through these special events application process. Assuming all other special event prerequisites are met as determined by the city manager's office, the city manager must then return to city council to recommend approval of an administrative motion authorizing such sales component for said events. As anticipated, the Xenia Community Festival leadership has submitted a special event application for the annual festival. They're requesting authorization to host the beer garden component of their event, which has been piloted with council's consent the past couple of seasons. These prior events have been conducted professionally with no occurrences of substantive problems. The festival committee has submitted all necessary documentation as required by my office, including their liquor control permit application, which we have signed off on. Based on these factors, it is staff's recommendation that council approve the administrative motion this evening authorizing the committee to host that component, that beer garden component for their upcoming festival. I do have with me also, I literally just got this at about 5 o'clock today, and I'll pass it down. It's not really of any significance. It just is an updated rendering of how that component will lay out. The points that I wanted to make is that it will be very self-contained with a what we call a double fence to help ensure that only folks who should be in that area, who are of age, will be in that area. So that's in that upper right-hand corner portion of the rendering. You can see how that would lay out. So again, just got this today as they were submitting their final paperwork, and I thought I'd pass it along, provide it to council as well.
Thank you. May I have a motion, please, to approve the request?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman
Second.
Lauterbach, seconded by Councilman Scrivens. Discussion or question on this motion, please?
What's been our, Mr. President, what's been our experience now? We've had this for a couple of years.
I couldn't give you financials. I don't have access to that information in terms of their profit loss on it. I think they did not do well the first year, but learned some lessons in terms of how they needed to amend their approach. Last year they made some pretty significant changes, reduced the number of material they bought, changed how they their overall approach with it. They're relocating that site within the park to put a little closer to food this year, which is one of the big pieces of feedback that they got. They feel confident enough that this can be a component to help fund better entertainment and better amenities overall, that they wanted to give it another try here. Again, I can say with confidence that we've had no problems that have been created from it. I know there was a lot of council debate about this when we first presented it, so there was quite a bit of due diligence in terms of discussion. Again, it's not a component for everyone, but certainly for a portion of the attendees, and we can say that we've had no behavioral or substantive issues as a result of this component.
Good.
Mayor?
I know that I'm the broken record on this one, but just want to say again, I find it disappointing that we are trying to base a festival success on alcohol. So I have no qualms with people walking up the street to drink, but I just find it disappointing that we are trying to get a festival based to do more success on that. So I'll be voting no.
Any other discussion or question, please? Seeing none?
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
I'm joining the mayor in my no vote. I think that for years we've been able to manage to have festivals and activities in the park without alcohol, and I don't see that it's a dire need, so I'll be voting no as well.
Thank you. Any other discussion or question, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace,
No.
Councilman Scrivens,
I'm not a beer drinker, but I'm not going to stop beer drinkers from wanting to have a beer. So I'm voting yes.
Councilman Lauterbach,
Aye.
Councilman Smith,
Aye.
Councilman Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Mays,
No.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Our final item under new business this evening is an administrative motion approving the schedule of bills in the amount of $842,946.44. Mr. Finance Director, anything else to add?
I have nothing to add.
Thank you. May I have a motion, please, to approve our bills?
So moved.
Moved by the mayor.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Dean. Any discussion or question on the bills? Councilman?
Yes, on page 7, under Pickrell, Schaefer, and Ebeling, legal services, $2,193.70 for land development, $278.40 for auditor opinion letter. By the next council meeting, I'd like a grand total of how much we've spent on outside legal counsel. if I could get that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or question on the bills, please? Seeing none, roll call.
Vice President Wallace,
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens,
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach,
Aye.
Councilman Smith,
Aye.
Councilman Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Mays,
Aye.
President Engel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. This time, we have reports of committees. First one is Traffic Commission. Councilman Dean, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Monday, August the 6th, the Traffic Commission met where we discussed disability parking spaces. It was a very short meeting, and that was all that was discussed.
Thank you. Anything for Councilman Dean in traffic, please? Second item is Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission. Councilman Lauterbach, please.
Thank you. I attended the meeting earlier this month. There was nothing that related to Xenia or even Greene County, so I'm not going to report on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything for NVRPC and Councilman Lauterbach, please? This time, we have opportunity for appointed officials and council comments, starting with Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. A few questions were asked this evening by Mr. Kalp, and I'll connect with Mr. Kalp, and I have some dialogue. I had planned on contacting him on some stuff
Could you
anyway.
speak
so-
up, please?
I'm sorry. I just said that earlier this evening during audience comments, Mr. Kalp had asked a couple questions about a private development project, and I'll connect with Mr. Kalp individually about his inquiries. A couple just announcements or reminders. City offices will be closed for Labor Day on September 3rd, and then we'll be reopening that following day on the 4th. And our neighborhood night out events, we're pleased to continue those events this year, and a couple forthcoming. Join us next week for our neighborhood night out event on August 28th. That'll be at Arrowwood Elementary. That starts, I didn't put the time, is it 4 or 5?
I believe the event starts at 5.
5, yeah, 5 to 7 p.m. I think is the time frame. So again, Arrowwood Elementary on the 28th, starting at 5, and then on September 18th will be at Cox Elementary. Again, join the City of Xenia, our partners, Xenia Community Schools, Kroger, Greene County branch of Ohio Means Jobs, a whole host of different partners who have all kinds of information, free food, bouncy house for the kids, all kinds of activities out there. So we encourage council members to join us and our residents in those neighborhoods to come out and participate. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you. Anything for our city manager, please? Mr. Finance Director.
I have nothing to share this evening.
Thank you. Anything for our finance director, please?
I'm a little late, Mr. President, but I would like to back up to the city manager. Some of the information that Mr. Kalp asked about, I would be interested in having the answers to as well. So after you meet with him, could you provide the council some information in writing so that we have that information?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Anything else for a second for the city manager or the finance director? Madam Law Director.
I have nothing this evening. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anything for our law director this evening, please? Councilman?
Yeah, Sunday, I drove around the city, and they're still throwing out the junk newspapers. Evidently, we need to tweak our ordinance because it's not working. They continue to throw out the junk newspapers every week. So what can we do to remedy that?
After the last council meeting, I met with the captains of the police division, explained to them what your concerns are. The current ordinance that you passed, as it's written, basically we just need to get some tickets written. So my understanding after speaking with those captains is they are going to make the effort. They are briefing all the officers, making sure the officers are aware. It would be very helpful, any of our citizens, if they know day and time that these are being thrown, if they will call in and let the PD know. I live on this street, it's happening this morning, that the officers can be there waiting to write people tickets. So I have talked to the PD. I don't know if the city manager would like to add.
Yeah, I mean, I think based on what I've seen, and I can't completely confirm that it's the only entity, but it appears that it's a part of Cox Media, which is a Dayton Daily News, a component of their subscription service, not even subscription service, but I think it's the Dayton Daily News service for those materials. And again, we've tried to reach out to them in the past and express the changes in our local ordinance. But to the law director's point, we have to respect due process. We have to be able to catch someone in the act and have essentially a crime that's committed that can be processed, that we can then prosecute effectively.
Has the maintenance department said anything about A, the street sweeper, B, these go in our storm drains?
I mean, that's certainly a possibility. I'm sure, in our street sweeping process that we're picking some of these up with other components of trash. So I think there's consensus with the staff, if I can speak for all three of us, and certainly was with council. It's an issue that we want to address. We've taken some initial steps to try to address it. I think the problem has gotten better. I know one of the smaller local vendor who does this, we've worked with, and I think they've been generally compliant. So we're dealing with the corporate entity. That's the problem. And I think we're just, as Danette said, we'll have to catch some folks in the act to be able to prosecute that, to try to move, toward a more effective solution ultimately.
Thank you.
Anything else for our law director, please? Moving to comments from mayor and city council. Madam Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Friday, August 10th, I attended the groundbreaking ceremony for the Legacy Village Apartments. It was a really neat evening where there was a lot talked about of the history of the property and how it used to be a place serving children, and now it's a place serving seniors, and just bookending the lifespan and how it's servicing people. So it was a good evening. On Monday, August 13th, I attended the Greene County Combined Health, the new building ribbon cutting. And if you haven't had a chance to go over there yet and see their new facility, I would encourage you to do so. Tuesday, August 14th, I had an opportunity to speak at the Kiwanis Club here in Xenia over at the Senior Center. And I'd like to thank specifically Joe Carmen for inviting me. And then Friday, August 17th, with Mr. Brodsky, we attended the Dayton Development Coalition Economic Development Forum. Very interesting. I had a long list of questions after the meeting, but it was very informative. Monday, August 20th, I was able to go to the Greene County Library's 40-year celebration of this particular building. They've been here now for 140 years, but it was neat to see a lot of pictures of when the building was first built in '78, and the vision that they had and the way they celebrated, and now celebrating 40 years later. So we are big fans of the local library. Of course, encourage people to go out to that. So thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you. Councilman Lauterbach, please.
Thank you. Earlier today, 4:30 to 6:30, I was chosen to be on a committee for the Xenia Vision for city schools. Very informative. We're going to be meeting once a month. And I've mentioned this before, I would still like this council to meet monthly with the school board. That's my preference. But anyway, also this is for council president. In our charter and in our contracts with our 3 appointed officials, we are supposed to do evaluations. To my knowledge, we haven't done evaluations for a long time. I think it's due that we do evaluations.
Well, thank you for pointing that out, Councilman. The city manager gave me a copy of his self-evaluation, which I had requested of him prior to council doing his evaluations. I was going to ask him to make a copy of that and submit to each of you. And at the next council meeting, we would hold an executive session to do a review of just that. Thank you.
Of all 3 appointed officials.
I have the city managers at the present time. I believe our finance director is not in his position for a year yet. The law director would be next up in the bucket. Thank you.
6 months, hers is 6 months.
Excuse me?
When we accepted her contract, it's a 6-month evaluation.
Okay, we will ask for her self-evaluation, and we will set and do an evaluation. Do you have any concerns? I've not heard any concerns from anyone on council in regards to the conduct of our appointed officials.
That's not the point. In our charter,
That's
it says
precisely the point, Councilman.
No, it isn't. And I'm not going to, we individually will talk in executive session. trying to put everybody on the spot. Yeah, I've got some problems, but I'm not gonna grind it out right here. We're gonna do it in executive session, as our charter and their contract says. I mean, do we go by the city charter or not?
And as I stated, Councilman, I have his self-evaluation. I will be happy to ensure that you and the rest of the council have a copy of it. And we will sit and review at our next council meeting in executive session, if that is agreeable to the body of us with the time.
Why did you get his evaluation all of a sudden? Did
Perhaps-
you request it? Or did he just give you his evaluation?
We had discussed some time ago that it would be good in the review process, rather than us simply sitting around the table and evaluating, to have a self-evaluation. This evening, he gave me his self-evaluation.
That's just for your eyes only.
Councilman, in a meeting that I just happened to be here early in this evening, the city manager said, "I've completed my self-evaluation, have a copy." That is less than, sir, 2.5 hours old. I will make a copy of, or have a copy of this made, and every one of you will have it in your mailbox, I'm sure, by Monday, or excuse me, by, today is Thursday, by Friday morning.
That would be transparent to the rest of the council, yes. And I believe in transparency.
Are you insinuating, sir, that there's a lack of transparency in the timing by which this is transpiring?
You're the one talking.
No, sir, you're the one insinuating.
Did you ask for that? No, you didn't. Honestly, did you ask for that evaluation?
Mr. City Manager, had we not discussed some time ago that it would be useful to have self-evaluations?
At the point of my most recent contract anniversary, prior to that, there were communications with regard to the need to conduct an evaluation process. I felt it necessary to provide that in my perspective. I'd probably be harder on myself than anyone else, and so this evening I provided that to the council president with the intent that that would be shared with all of council, because I would prefer to have that discussion. As I met with Levi, I think the other day, Councilman Dean, Councilman Lauterbach the other day, just to discuss how are we doing on things like communication? How are we doing on things like transparency? So I think we all desire that. I believe that's the case of all the council members and the appointed officials. We want to make sure that we're providing, meeting your expectations where it's at all humanly possible. So I don't think we're on different pages here. I think the desire is to have a discussion. Proper place is in an executive session. After everybody's had an opportunity to review what's been prepared by us, and then the council can write whatever it feels necessary. So,
Thank you. I think executive session is where it should be discussed.
You have anything else, Councilman? Thank you. Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just welcome back, everyone, to school. Schools are now in session, and so be aware of the school buses, the kids at the crossings, kids at the corners, that type of thing. And also was able to attend the Greene County Public Health Department open house. I came towards the end, and I heard it was really packed before I got there. It's just a really nice facility. We're really blessed in Xenia to have that. And I'd also like to thank Superintendent David Deskins from Greene County Career Center. Appreciate his presentation, and can honestly agree that there are jobs out there that are going unfilled. Just as an example, today I had to wait 3 hours for assistance on IT for some software and some printing issues that we had at work. And just talking to the girl who was in a different state, they're just hammered because the growth in the economy, and that's a great thing. I think our country is, we're building on that, and I think it's a great thing. And I look forward to neighborhood nights out coming up, and appreciate the schools for hosting those with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilman Scrivens.
Thank you, Mr. President, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, City of Xenia. I had the good fortune to attend an event instead of our mayor. She had asked me. There was a week of harvest that was sponsored by the New Life Christian Assembly, along with the United Christian Church Disciples of Christ. They were there, First United Christian Church Disciples of Christ, and the Zion Baptist Church. They were all assembled for picnicking and clothes giveaway and school supplies giveaway. It was a very good event. It was held at Lexington Park, and I hadn't seen that many people in Lexington Park in the last 20 years. So it's nice to have the community to come out, use our park facilities, and at some point we probably need to restripe the basketball court because, I mean, that's where our students go to play, and that's who develops into our athletes at Xenia and Xenia Legacy. So an investment in our parks, especially the basketball, we see these little backboards. These little backboards, little moon shaped, those are not backboards. I don't know where we got those from. We need a backboard with a box so we can develop skills and have skilled players on our teams. And they come from the city parks, trust me. I've seen them come from the parks. So I thank the mayor for asking me to do that for her.
Thank you, sir.
I will be attending a meeting on September 27th of the Sports and Exercise Science Advisory Committee, and that's with the Greene County Career Center. And this will be my second meeting with them, and so far, so good. One thing I would like to bring out, it seems that trash cans are being left out more than 24 hours, and it's not under the bailiwick of our nuisance inspector, and that's still under the city manager's office. Possibly we need to change the language of our ordinance to put that in the nuisance inspector's bailiwick so we could get some enforcement. There are some properties that have the cans sitting out all week, and some, you know, they put them out on whatever their collection day is, and 3 or 4 days later they go back and get them. I mean, it's just totally unacceptable. So we need to figure out a way to encourage our residents to take the cans back after they're empty. Don't leave them sitting out being an eyesore. I mean, they're ugly, but they're functional. And also, I spoke to a number of people today at the State Secretary of State's office, and I'll be lamenting that later on. Xenia High School plays Beaver Creek High School tomorrow night at Frank Zink Field for all us Buccaneer fans. Go Bucks! And with that, Mr. President, I yield back the balance of my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Dean.
I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vice President.
The only thing I would think of is that Councilman Smith mentioned that schools were back in, but so that also includes our universities. Both Wilberforce and Central State are back in as well, and we would encourage folk to be safe. And they've been doing some construction along 42 and Bickett Road, and of course there's an issue with the Wilberforce students have been encouraged to stay out of the middle of the road on Bickett Road because the Sheriff's Department has expressed some concerns that as they walk over to Speedway, they're going down the middle of the road. So we'd encourage them to be careful and mindful that they need to be on the edge of the road instead of the middle of the road. So that was all that I had. And I did hear about the Lexington Park situation because the Bufords were there representing First United, and it was a phenomenal event. I thank Sister Murphy, Sister Karen Murphy from New Life Christian Assembly. She's an absolute bundle of energy, and we just thank New Life for the leadership that they provided in that situation.
Thank you.
One final thing, Mr. President, I've neglected. The Secretary to the City Manager has asked us, along with other staff, to man the staff tent that we're going to have at the Xenia Community Festival. So I'm volunteering for Saturday from 2 to 4. So I encourage the rest of the council members to come up under the tent.
Thank you. For my part, thank you, Councilman Scrivens. I also responded to that note. I think I'm taking the Friday late evening shift. I thought that would be very popular, so I'd go ahead and jump on that one. And I just tag on to the Vice President's comments about school being back in session. Obviously, welcome back to a hopefully very good and productive 2018-2019 year for all of Xenia Community Schools, but would call everyone's attention to safety. As the Vice President mentioned, my part in the safety aspect would be as the natural evolution of things occurs and the days get shorter on both the back end and the front end, there will be children out waiting for the bus that comes by between 6 and 7:30 in the morning, and sometimes they are close to the road. Please, as you're driving and it's not as light as it once was when it was June and July, please be careful of our children. They are, of course, our most valuable asset. If there's nothing else from my colleagues, I would ask for a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Moved by the Vice President. Second, please.
Second.
Second by Councilman Smith, beat you to it. Do I have a roll call?
Ready to roll.
Vice President Wallace,
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens,
Aye.
Councilman Lauterbach,
Aye.
Councilman Smith, Councilman Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Mays,
Aye.
President Ingle.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.